Up until 7, we'll talk some NBA with Brian Geltzeiler from an NBA Insider. You hear him on Sirius, does some NBA TV. Brian, what's going on?
Hey, Mike, how you doing, pal?
All right. Before I get to the whole 22 team plan, Nick, coach, what's your 1, 2, 3 for the Knicks coach?
Right now, from everything I'm gathering, there's just the one. It's Tom's job to lose, Tom Thibodeau. I think that's the guy. Ultimately, I think that's the guy Leon Rose wants more than anyone. And I think it's just a matter. They'll go through a process. They'll interview a couple of other people and consider some other people. But I don't think anybody's under serious consideration right now besides for Tom. I mean, they'll talk to Mark Jackson because he's Mark Jackson. But I think beyond that, I think it's going to be – I feel like it's locked in on Tom here. A couple things you got to consider. First of all, Leon Rose got a long-standing relationship with Tom. Number two, Leon's new at this, and he needs someone to be able to help him a little bit who's got some experience not only on the sidelines but in the front office as well, Mike, and that's going to be a very important factor. The thing for Tom is this. Tom is one of the best basketball coaches on the planet.
Without question. But he's also a my way or the highway and a defensive first guy. And can he bring big players in with that theme?
I think so. Listen, ultimately, I don't know if their focus is as much as wanting to bring big players in early on. I think this is more of if we build it, they will come. And I think that's the right attitude here. I think for years, Mike, we're living, 20 years of trying to go get the next great big free agent. And who did Knicks exactly land? Amari Stoudemire? That's been it. They got to build something from the ground up. And let's face it, this is a program and an organization that is desperate to put an adult in the room. Tom is the adult in the room.
No, Tom's a wonderful. Listen, we know Tom forever. Tom's a wonderful coach. I mean, he's always been an excellent coach. But we all know he's also a tough guy, and he's hard on his players. He makes them, which I like, makes them work hard, defensive first. But can you get, if you're looking to get a good player to come join in, will they come play for his style of basketball?
I think so. I think if the team is winning, absolutely. I think that's what it's going to come down to, if the team is winning. Listen, the thing for Tom here, and I've had conversations with him regarding some of this, on air and off, and Tom, he'll tell you that he's changed a little bit and that he understands things maybe a little bit differently than he did in the past, and I kind of believe him. I think that Tom gets today's player. I think he's much more respected by players than people think, and when you look at Jimmy Butler's issues in Minnesota, I think it's very important when you look at Tom's history with star players to look at Jimmy Butler's issues in Minnesota and understand that they were a whole lot more about Towns and Wiggins than they were about playing for Tom Thibodeau, and the team had committed tons of money to both of those players and not tons of money for Jimmy Butler. One other thing about Tom and star players, Mike, and it is really important, all right? Tom had a big-time star when he was in Chicago and Derrick Rose. First chance Derrick Rose got in free agency, he ran to Tom in Minnesota. Tom's not a guy that turns off stars. He's defense first, and he means business. But if you want to win, if you're a guy that rolls up his sleeves and wants to do the work and be a winning basketball player, you're not afraid of playing for Tom Thibodeau. Here's the other thing regarding Tom and personnel. And Tom's gets beat up a little bit over what happened in Minnesota, and I'm not sure it's all that fair. I don't know that you want Tom to be the guy that runs your entire organization, but you definitely want Tom, if he's coaching a team, to have personnel input. He will have personnel input with Leon Rose. I think it's a great spot.
And listen, I have no problem with him coaching a team. He's an excellent coach. I mean, he's a superb coach. And you're right, they need a good man to run the team. I would have no problems with Van Gundy. I would have no problems with Thibodeau. I have no problems with either one. So I agree. All right, to the playoffs, the 22 team thing. Let's be honest. I mean, now I've watched two organizations bend over backward for Zion. Now, first the NCAA and now the NBA. I mean, this is the Damon Lillard Zion 22 team package. Here is what this is.
It's exactly what it is, Mike. Listen, you think about the time that these TV partners did. The importance they put, we talked about this, you and I, in October, Mike, the importance that they put into Zion Williamson in creating a national TV schedule, and then think about how little of Zion Williamson they got. no matter what happened here, the league was going to find a way to be able to get Zion Williamson on the television screen when the season starts back up. There's no other reason for any of this. And yes, a lot of it's Lillard too. They want guys that are going to generate.
Also, get John Morant on because he's your future too. John Morant's going to be as important to this league going forward as Zion's going to be. He's going to be a great player.
Mike, I think he's a really good player now. And you're absolutely right. I just don't know that in terms of marquee value.
Oh, no,
right
listen,
now.
right? Listen. Zion has been sold like cornflakes. I mean, let's be honest. He has been marketed better than any player. The last player marketed even closely to Zion was Patrick Ewing at this level. I mean, Zion has been marketed unbelievably. From the day he went to Duke, he's been marketed that way. So, listen, they have done a superb job. I mean, he's a household name, and he's hardly played.
Correct. And when he's played pretty well. I mean, there are holes in his game.
No, listen, he didn't turn the league upside down, but he played well. I'd be the first to admit it. He played well. And he's going to play well. He's going to put up a lot of points and a lot of rebounds. I don't know that he's going to change the game, but he's going to put up a lot of points and rebounds. And listen, they have decided that he's what America wants. I'll wait and see if that's true. But the point is, they have marketed the heck out of him, and they wanted him in these playoffs.
Yeah, and people tune in to watch him, Mike. That's the other thing. He generates ratings. He has for them in a short amount of time. They saw a rating spike in Pelican games with Zion on the floor, so they're going to want to get him out.
What kind of team is?
Mike,
go ahead.
And to the league's credit, they created a metric to get it done. You know, because listen, I was one of these 16 or 30 guys,
right?
And I felt like anything in between was going to be arbitrary. At least they invented a metric saying, okay, we have a stat that says if you're more than 6 games out of the playoffs,
I can live with it. I can live with it. I can live with the. Listen, they created a process for a couple of guys, but I can live with it. I really can. I don't have a big problem with it. It gets everybody who needs to be there. So I don't have a problem with it. Now, we're talking with Brian Geltzeiler of the NBA. Does it help? A better way is this. Say it this way: does it help is this process that we're going to go through going to help a veteran team more or a young athletic team more?
I think a young athletic team more, Mike. I think the veteran teams, where you worry about veteran teams, are pulled muscles. You know, you're down. They're going to be, by the time they play, they're going to be down for 4.5 months. That's a long time to be down. And you're going to come back, you're going to have some sort of a training camp, but the games are going to get intense quickly. And to me, I think you have older players are going to be more susceptible to injury and muscle pulls. And this is the type of thing, with the games coming at you fast and furious, a muscle pull, what would have been a week and a half, 2-week injury in a regular playoff and cost you, 4 or 5 games, are going to cost you,
So it's going to be conditioning. So you're saying it's conditioning over intelligence, where one team you got to spend an hour and a half on how you're going to attack the pick and roll. On the other team, you got to make sure they're in the tubs is what it comes down to.
Absolutely, 100% right.
So you're saying the young athletic team over the brains team that doesn't need the adjustments, you'd rather have the young team right now?
I'd rather have the young team right now. And I'll give you 2 teams, one in each conference, that I think you got to keep an eye on here that this is going to favor. Denver in the West, who really relies on one older player in Millsap, and that's it. And assuming that the big guy, Jokic, doesn't come back too doughy. And
he started the year that way, that's for sure.
He did.
Yeah,
he did. So if hopefully he's been conditioning and not sitting on the couch and watching Netflix and eating pizza. So you want to see that out of him. And Murray is a good player. And Murray was banged up, if you remember, and now he'll be back healthy. And then the other team's Philadelphia. You had no idea what you were going to get out of Simmons going forward for the rest of the season with that back. And there's another situation. If Joel Embiid's been laying off the Shirley Temples and going hard and keeping himself in shape, that's a young team that could still be very dangerous. And they're planning on making a starting lineup change where they're pulling Al Horford out of the starting lineup. Shake Milton played very well while Simmons was hurt, and he shot the ball well. They're going to put him in the starting lineup so they have some more shooting in there. And Simmons is going to be a much more of a natural role. He'll have the ball in his hands a lot, but it'll be a little more point forward-ish for him in terms of what they need out of him. I think Philly is going to be very.
How about Porzingis? What kind of shape is Porzingis going to be in?
I think he's going to be in good shape, Porzingis. You know, the thing you also have to remember when the season ended, Mike, Kristaps was playing at a hugely high level. He played better than he ever played on the Knicks for his last month with Dallas.
So listen, if he's in shape they have a very good. I mean, with him and Doncic, they got a chance to be a very dangerous team. If he's got his A game and he can play 30 minutes, they have a good team.
And they have a very good team. So I'm going to tell you something else about him. He can make them into an A-level defense. As good as he is offensively, the range, all of it, where he has been a godsend for that team this season is they don't have a lot of wonderful individual defenders, but he tracks pick and roll as well as anybody.
Hey, there's
in the
nothing
league in terms
he
of
can't.
how he uses his length.
There's nothing he can't do. You know what? I watch him in person enough. As long as those legs stay healthy, I was there the night he got hurt. As a matter of fact, his ability. Both ends of the floor. I mean, there's nothing he can't do. From sticking the outside shot to going to the basket to being a rim defender, he can do everything.
Yeah, and playing a low post, too. They don't use him much there, and Carlisle's objected to it. But you know what? Pour it into him in a low post and have to take a little turnaround. Who's getting a hand up and blocking that? He can do anything he wants. He'll get you hard baskets. He'll get you easy baskets. And you know what's happened with him? It was hard for him early on with Luka because Luka is, you know Luka, Mike, he's larger than life.
Yeah, he's
huge. He's got a lot of
great
charisma.
player. He's a great player.
Great player. A lot of personality. And for Porzingis coming into this organization, it was a little weird having to be the second banana and not totally comfortable. But you know what? Lucas sat some time, was out for a little while. Porzingis grew into the role, and now the two of them, had it rolling together. You're absolutely right. Dallas is a very, very dangerous team coming here. And both of those guys are in shape and healthy.
And Memphis was playing well, too.
They are, and they catch a break here, too, because if you remember them, they had Jaren Jackson out, and he was most likely going to miss the rest of the regular season. Plus, they had the hardest schedule out of all those West teams that was left for them. And even though they had a lead, they were hurt. That's an important player for them, Jackson, on both sides. And that schedule was going to be brutal. So they really caught a massive break here where they get to kind of keep their record, and they go back to this restart where they're going to have kind of an evenish schedule with everybody else. It really helps them a lot. I don't think they can advance in the playoffs. I don't think they're capable of that. But even just getting into a 7-game series with a team like the Lakers is going to do wonders for guys like Morant and Jaren Jackson.
Have they ironed out every detail now, or are they still working on details that they have to iron out here?
Smaller details still need to be ironed out here. I mean, there was a lot of crazy proposals David McMenamin of ESPN had the other day that you heard for home court advantage, and they're not going to alter the game in the way of giving guys extra fouls.
No, they can't do that. They play the game straight. I don't care where it's played. Play the game straight. Case closed. That's all there is to it.
Correct.
That's it.
And the one interesting thing regarding home court that I think is kind of still out there, and this actually I think is a good idea,
Go ahead.
is to give the higher seeded teams their choice of resort to stay at.
That's fine. No, listen, I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. Give them choice of bench, give them choice of locker room, give them choice of facility. Correct. I think they earn that. I think that's all fair. Don't give them any breaks once the game starts, though. Come on, that's not fair.
Right? No breaks once the game starts. And listen, I know there's been a lot of complaining that Washington got in. But ultimately, you have to understand they needed to get Washington in to play the format that they want to play.
Yep.
I love this format where if top 8 seeds in each conference, if you're within 4 games as a 9 seed or the 8 seed,
you got to
go beat them twice to steal the playoff spot.
Yep.
But you couldn't do that with only 8 teams in the East. So you had to stretch a way to get a 9th team in there. And listen, Phoenix ends up being a beneficiary of that because Phoenix ends up being able to play now where they most likely, if it had been 20 teams, Phoenix would have been out as Washington would have been out.
And
this way you didn't have to shift a West team back to the East. This works out better.
Right, and this is good for Phoenix because they're going to be, they're on their way of being a good team.
Oh, they're on the way. He's an excellent coach, Mike. You know that about
him. And they're a player away now. They're only one more player away from being a really good team.
You know, what Monty's done with Booker this year, and I know you and I have spoken about this.
Yeah, I love Booker. Booker had a great year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And listen, and Ayton missed that those first 25 games with that suspension and came back a little slow. This will, getting involved in even this level of play for Phoenix, even they're not likely to get in the playoffs, but coming out playing these 8 games on this kind of stage, it only helps a young team like that.
No, I think it does. It does completely. Any team, any players complaining about anything, or they're okay?
The one big complaint you got, and Sean Sharania of The Athletic had this earlier today, but I had heard this prior also. The one big complaint that you got is, listen, you can't have a possible Game 7 of the NBA playoffs on October 12th and then tell these guys that you got to show up for training camp on November 10th.
No, that cannot happen.
And the players are pushing back on that, and they should push back.
That can't happen. That's not fair. It's not fair.
And
you know who's going to put the kibosh on that is LeBron.
Heartbeat, because he's going to be playing that deep.
Yep.
He's going to be heartbeat. So, and Michelle Roberts told that to the players today pretty much. She said, don't count on that being the scenario that happens here, that ultimately they'll get it pushed back. And, Mike, it's going to be what we've said all along. It's going to be Christmas Day. And I know, the thing is, why they want
Nothing wrong with that. That's fine. That doesn't hurt them. They can get that done.
Why they want it December 1st, Mike, is they want the option to move it back to the regular time the next year. Yep. And if they have it on Christmas Day, then you're pushing back 2 months and you're shortening the next off season. And what you may have to do is, if you want to get the league back on its regular
shorten
calendar,
the regular season. Shorten the regular season.
Either shorten the regular season, or the following season started just a month early.
Or just
the following season started a month, and then you're in 2 seasons you're back on schedule.
Absolutely,
it's going to have effects. Yeah,
you play 72 games this year coming up, and you'll be fine. You can it would work out fine, and they'd like to do that anyway. At each side take a little less and work out a 72 game. That's it. How far did the East-West stuff really get as far as that? As far as how they were going to break this up?
Well, it was interesting. The loud voice in that Board of Governors meeting, from my understanding, was Michael Jordan, who pretty much said, listen, you cannot turn around with everything that's happened, and if you don't want an asterisk attached to this year, and as it is, you're changing the format to accommodate the TV networks, as we discussed. You can't turn around and go 1 through 16. He said
you cannot. He was 100% right. He's 100% right. It would invalidate the championship.
It totally would. So we had a conference system from the jump. We keep the conference system, and
all they were trying to do was, just like they wanted Zion in, all they were trying to do was separate the Lakers and the Clippers.
That's all they wanted to do. But in the end, you know what? If they're all in the same location here, it doesn't matter. And you know what's happened, Mike? Giannis has become such a big draw, and people enjoy watching him as much. If you're going to get him in a final against the league would rather have LeBron, but they're not going to complain if it's Kawhi and Paul George. No. You know what I mean? So if that's where it ends up being, that's what it ends up being. And you still have to Jordan being the one that said this, because Jordan represented kind of today's star players and saying these guys that are going after a legacy don't want asterisks attached to their names. And you're going to create a system that's going to make it harder for these guys to use this season as a legacy builder. Because, Mike, I'll tell you this, and my radio partner, Sam Mitchell, and I are both in agreement on this and talk about it all the time. I think this year gets an asterisk for the opposite reason, because I think this is going to be a lot harder to win than it is in other years without home court, games that are packed together, back-to-backs in the playoffs, that stuff that teams haven't had historically. And under this set of circumstances, they're trying to not get sick and being in a bubble and no families. And I mean, the families come, once the first round of the playoffs is over. But you have a lot of time with all this stuff, a lot to worry about. I actually think this is going to be harder than a normal year.
Yeah, plus, hey, the Bucks owners, there's some clout in that room. They were not going to let that happen either. You got some strong guys in that room, very strong guys, and they were not going to let that. They were not going to get fed that after the year they've had, where they don't get to the finals. I mean, that's just not fair. I know what they were doing with the Lakers and the Clippers, but you know what? It wasn't going to happen. I just wondered how far it got, and Jordan was right. He was 100% right.
Yep, he's the one that put the kibosh on, and you're right about the Bucks owners. Mark Lasry,
he's a
guy,
a very influential financial guy. Yep. Has a big podium. Absolutely, he was not going to let that happen. No way. All right, so you now it's funny. It's still a long time till the season starts when you think about it. You know what?
It is.
It's really longer than it needs to be. I understand, but why couldn't they move it up a little bit and just use that time? They didn't want to, right?
They didn't want to. I think the big thing is this.
They could have started the 15th of July if they wanted to. It's only the 5th of June right now.
They absolutely could have. But again, the same owner, Michael Jordan, put Silver's feet to the fire a little bit with this and said safety, 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 safety. It's like whatever happens beyond, you want to crown a champion, you want to play a season, what are you doing to keep these players safe? And ultimately, one of the selling points that Silver was able to sell the players on coming back to be able to do this, and the players have ratified this as well, is we push it back a little later and we give this current phase of the virus time to fade. And then once we put you in a bubble, if there's a second wave that comes, technically everybody's getting tested every day, but technically you're going to be somewhat insulated from a second wave. So if it runs a little later and into a time that there is a second wave, we at least have your safety in mind. And that's really what this is all about, pushing it back. They want to make sure that the players understand that the NBA owners are out for their safety in earnest. And they want to be able to understand somebody's going to test positive at one point or another. They get that, and they're not going to shut down the season when that happens. But ultimately, this was about saying, hey, you know what? If we have to start a little later to make sure that we have everybody safe, then that's what we'll do.
All right, thanks. We'll talk soon. Thanks very much, Brian.
You got it, Mike. My pleasure, pal. Take care.
Brian Geltzeiler from the NBA Insider. You hear him on Sirius, NBA.com, and NBA Television. Back after this.